Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we're gonna make this simple synthwave loop animation and I'll provide the car model for you, so we'll focus mostly on modeling the environment, the animation and lighting and rendering. And remember, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, it will really help my channel to grow. And if you're new to the channel and you'd like to see more tutorials like this, please hit that subscribe and additionally bell button if you want to get notified when I release something new. And if you're new to the world of 3D and Blender and you want to become a 3D illustrator, go and check out my courses that are carefully designed to teach you beginner and intermediate skills in quickest and most effective way. For example, with the new Ultimate 3D bundle, you can go from simple cubic designs all the way to full character illustration in a matter of weeks. So if you're interested, please go check out the link in the description. Let's jump right into empty Blender file, and first of all I will delete everything here. So let's drag a selection, press X and hit delete. And now let's start modeling the environment for the animation. So let's press Shift A and let's add a plane, hit tab, let's press S then 2 to scale this 2 times. And we want to stay at least a little bit precise here because that will make the looping the animation later easier. And now we can press 2 for edge select. Select this edge, press Shift D to duplicate it, right click to release in place and press P and choose selection. That will separate it into a new object right here, so we can tab out and select the new object with only the edge inside. This way we are just reusing the geometry, so we don't have to make everything from scratch. And now tab in, press A to select all and E then X to extrude this on X-axis like this. We'll create a little curve or something here and press A and extrude it up so it's a little bit higher than the road. And now we can separate more geometry, so let's press 3 for face select, select this face right here, and again we'll do the same, Shift D, right click to release and P, enter to separate. Now we'll tab out, select the new object here, tab in and create a curve. Now let me slice this few times, so let's press Ctrl R and create 3 slices like this, right click to release, and now we can press Ctrl B to bevel and do just tiny bevel like this, really subtle. Press X and delete faces, and this way we created these gaps. So now we can press A to select all and E to extrude and we have a curve. Now we can stylize it further. So for example, we can go for vertex select by pressing 1, select one of these vertices and press Ctrl Shift B to vertex bevel, and we can do the same here. And of course we can select one of these vertices, press G twice to slide it. And this way we can go around our model, so you can select whole edge and bevel that. And here I will do one more like this. And this is just to give this some visual interest so it doesn't look uniform. Okay, so that's for the curve. And now let's create a street lamp here. That will be a very important element in the animation. It will be that repeating thing that will suggest our car is moving, because our car in fact will be still in center of the scene. So let's shift right click here to move the cursor, and I will use curves to create a lamp. I think that's the easiest way. So let's press Shift A and let's add a single vert here. If you don't have this option, you go into the preferences, add-ons and activate extra objects add-on, and now just add single vert. So we have an object with single vertex inside. Now make sure you're in the vertex select, so press 1 or click here. And now we'll just start extruding. So let's press E then Z and extrude our first vertex like this. Now let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad. Now we can press E again and extrude this at an angle, and now E then X to extrude it there. So we kind of want to end up over the road in the middle. Now we can hold Shift S and switch cursor to select it. Now tab out and let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane. We'll create a lamp here. So we can tab in, press G then X and move this 1 meter to the side and confirm. And now we can press S then Y and make it smaller like this. And since the origin point stayed there, we can just tab out, scale this down, press Ctrl A and apply scale. Now we can tab back in to the edit mode and let's press Ctrl Shift B to bevel these sides, and we can press A to select all and E to extrude. Just like that. And here at the bottom we can switch to the face select by pressing 3, press I to inset and extrude it down. So this will be our simple lamp. Now let's create that curve. So tab out, select our single vertex object, now tab in, and first of all let me switch to the vertex select by pressing 1, select these 2 vertices and press Ctrl Shift B to bevel them, and we can increase the number of cuts with the mouse wheel just like that, so it's just a little curved. And now we can press Ctrl R to create a new vertex right here, press G twice to slide it down, and right here we can press Ctrl Shift B to create two vertices there in place. And let's press Ctrl R again, create a new one here and slide it down just like this, and Ctrl Shift B to bevel it again, and you will see why just in a second. So now we can tab out, right click and choose convert to curve. So this is now curve. These are not vertices anymore, these are control points. And if you go to the curve settings in the object data properties, you can expand this geometry section and increase the depth of the curve. That will give it geometry, and you can see how nicely it's spread all over the place, so you don't have to extrude this manually. And now just reduce the resolution to 2, for example, and now we can tab back in, select these bottom 4 vertices, or control points rather, and now press Alt S to scale them up like this. And we can choose these 2 at the bottom and do the same there. So you have simple low poly lamp that's basically made out of the curve, and you can simply just change its proportions, you know, slide these things around. It's very dynamic. I really like to work with this method. Okay, so that's the lamp. We can tab out. Let's select these 2 by holding Shift with this one as last, press Ctrl P, and let's parent to object so we can scale it down and move it around. It should still kind of just sit in the middle here with the lamp. If it doesn't, you can just slide the lamp, or you can change the control points to make this longer or something. That's totally up to you. Now let's hold Shift S and switch cursor back to world origin, and this is basically our scene. Now I will convert this to mesh, so right click and convert to mesh on the curve there. So this is now converted to mesh, and we can just join everything. I want this to be as simple as possible, and I want to use array modifier, so let's just select everything, hold Shift to select the bottom plane as last, and press Ctrl J to join this object inside. And this is now in the single plane object, so we can go into the modifiers tab and add an array modifier, and instead of X, let's set this to 0, we'll choose Y value of -1, and let's say we want 20 pieces there. So we now have a nice road. The next thing I want to do is to give this some materials, so we can hold Z and switch to the material preview. And now let's go to the render settings, and we'll enable ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections. We probably don't need refraction this time, just to have a nicer EV preview. And now let's go to the materials tab, and let's create a new material, and let's call this road. So I will rename it right here, and now we can create a new one, and let's call that concrete. And now if we tab into the object, we can just hover over these objects and press L to select linked parts that are separate from the other meshes here, and assign concrete material here. So now if we change the color of the concrete material, it will change there as well. So we can hover here as well and apply concrete there. Now let's click on the lamp, press L to select it. We can select the top part as well. Create a new material slot, and let's add a metal material, and we can add some metallic value here as well and slightly reduce the value of the material. And now let's click assign, and you have a nice steel lamp here. And now here I think this would look good with some emission, so let's go for face select by pressing 3, select this face, and we can press Ctrl+ on a numpad to expand that selection, create a new material slot, and change the principled shader to emission shader. And let's give it value of 5, for example, and let's hit assign. So we now have some light here. Now tab out, and I will go back to the road material because we left it white. First of all, I want it to be dark, and the second, I want to paint some puddles on it. So first of all, make sure it's unwrapped. So tab in, select the bottom face and press U and unwrap. And now if you go to the UV editing window, you should see it unwrapped like this. And now we can go to the texture paint mode, and you can see this is all violet because there's no texture there. And we have our road material selected here, but it says there are no textures. So let's hit the plus icon here, and we'll create a roughness map here. And let's, for example, set this to 2K resolution. You can choose whatever you want. And we don't need an alpha, we just need to set initial roughness value here if you don't want to repaint it later. And If you go all black, there's no roughness, so it will be all glossy, and if you go white, it'll be rough. So something like this should be fine. I think the road could be like rainy or something a little bit wet, so we'll reduce the roughness a little bit, for example here, like that, and let's hit OK, and you can see that color right here. And now if we want to have like reflective puddles, we'll need to paint with black color. So let's pick the black color and we can paint in some puddles like that. They will be repeated, of course, but that shouldn't matter here, as long as you don't touch the edges there, because that will look really weird here. So let's make sure you don't do that, and just make some small puddles here and there. Something like this should be enough. Now there are two things you can do to make sure the texture survives, because so far it's not saved. And if you tab out and tab back in, it should update here, and you can see it's a road roughness texture, but it isn't saved. There's an asterisk here, so you can click save and save it on your disk, or you can just save it inside your file. You can go image and pack, that will make the asterisk disappear, and the texture is now part of your Blender file. So now if you go to the layout, you can see these puddles right here. Okay, let's continue and let's set up some animation. So first of all, let me set up camera, press Shift A and let's add a camera. Now I will press Alt R to reset its rotation, press G, then Z to move it up, and RX 90 degrees. So this will be our initial camera, and we can move it further back, so press G then Y and move it back. So this is something the camera sees right now. Of course it's not ideal, but we'll tackle that in a second. First of all, let me update the background here. Let's select this object, and we know it's 4 meters long and we need to be looping, so we need this to be moved along y-axis on the frame 1. So let's go back to the modifiers panel and let's set count to 30, and let's move this like 40 meters along y-axis, because 4 meters times 10. So press G then Y, 40, and now you can see we have 10 parts of the road here and 20 here, so that leaves us with quite a reserve. And now we'll import the car. I prepared a model for you that's from my previous project. You just go ahead and download the assets file from either the Gumroad link, or if you're a patron, from Patreon, and just open the file and you can copy paste it here, or you can go file, append, and choose the file and the car model. I will just copy paste it right here. Before you copy paste, make sure all of the objects are selected, because right now you can see it has some objects attached to it, so you can hold Shift and press right bracket several times to make sure all of the children are selected. And now you can see this is a little bit too large for our scene, so let's make it smaller like this and move it aside. So this is very simple low poly Lamborghini model, but it should do okay for a scene like this. Now let's press 0 on a numpad to see our camera, and I think the car should be in the middle, so let's press Alt G to reset its location, and let's play with the camera. So I will select the camera, press G then Y and move it a little bit back and maybe down. So press G then Z and move it down like this, and I want to update the output to something like 1200 to 1200, so it's a square image. And now if you want to enforce that symmetry, you can just select the background object, tab in, make sure you toggle the X-ray, now press 1 for vertex select, and you can see it all the way back. Now select all of these vertices and press G then X and move it like this slightly. And of course you can press L hovering over the lamp, select the whole lamp, press G then X and move it to the side tiny bit. So this way you will make sure these lamps are in the middle and are disappearing nicely into the vanishing point here in the middle. So now tab out. This should be enough so far, and let's set up some animations. So let's select this object right here. We're on the frame 1. Let's hit I for location and insert our first keyframe. Now I think something like 120 frames should be enough, and let's specify the FPS in the output. That should be 30. And now let's move to frame 120, and we should move this, for example, let's try that 40 that we tried to the other side. So let's hit G, then Y and 40, and press I and insert location. Now if you play this, this is what you get. It will move 40 meters and then start over again, but you can see it's slowing down and accelerating. That's because by default these are Bezier animations, so you can hover over these keyframes, you can select them to make sure, press T and switch to linear interpolation, and now it will just move at a constant pace like this and loop very nicely. So this is the basic loop we have set up here. You can play with the animation, move it a little bit up if you want. And now just subtle animation for the car, so let's select it, go for the animation tab, and I will switch this to graph editor. I will go to frame 1 and hit I and location. Now expand this, and we don't need Y and Z location channels, so let's select those and press X. And now just select X location channel. We can expand the side panel here, go to modifiers and add some noise. And of course, let's restrict the frame range from 1 to 120, and let's say something like 20 and 20 for blending in and out. And we can see what this does. This will be quite hectic probably, so we'll need to scale this up so the curve is not so violent, and let's reduce the strength to something like 0.2 or maybe even less, something like 0.1, or it can go 0.2, but the scale needs to be much larger, something like 20, and the car moves from side to side. Of course, I'm not animating the wheels here because they are not visible in the front, so if you want another angle or something like that, you would need to animate the wheels separately. So that's the car and the background animation. We can go back to the layout view and make our render look a little bit better. So first of all, let me press Ctrl B and limit our rendering here for the camera only. And now let's go here and switch on scene lights and scene world. If this is too strong because we left the bloom on, you can go ahead and disable bloom. And first let me change the color of the car. So let's go to the materials. You can see the car material here, and I will change it to some purple color like this. And for the color to be better visible, I will press Shift A and let's add a new light. There'll be the area light, press G then Z, move it up, and let's increase the power to something like 250. And let's change it from square to disc, so it has a nicer reflection here, and we can move it more towards the front, so we have this nice gradient on the car. And I think it's too strong, but maybe we can just give this a little bit purple or warmer tone as well to enforce that color scheme. And now let's go to the world settings, and we can go for something like blue or blue violet color, maybe make it a little bit lighter like this. So this is starting to look better. We have these puddles on the road and everything, but these lamps are not disappearing into the background, so we can make use of the volumetric material here. So let's rotate this a little bit and press Shift A and let's add a cube like this. Now tab in, press S to scale, just like that, and I can see all of the vertices because I left the X-ray on. So I will just select the back vertices, press G then Y and move them towards the back like this. Now tab out and let's add a new material here, and I will call this fog. And let's remove the principled BSDF from the surface connector. So let's remove it here. This is the surface part of the material, and let's expand the volume and add a principled volume, so that will create a fog for us. This is a little bit too strong if you go for a camera view, but if you reduce the density to something like 0.02, that'll make it a little bit better. This already looks quite nicer, but these are still not disappearing into the background because the density of the volume material is not so strong, but we can adjust that as well. So let's go to the shading, and we'll make use of our node editor here. So we'll make this density thingy dynamic. So let's press Shift A and let's add a texture, and let's add gradient texture. Now if you have Node Wrangler add-on active, you can press Ctrl T to add mapping. If you don't, you can just press Shift A and search for texture coordinate node and mapping node and connect them into your gradient texture. But I really recommend to activate the node Wrangler add-on. You can find its name in the description of the video, and just go ahead, find it in the preferences, add-ons, and activate it. And now you can use Ctrl-Shift-Click with the left mouse button to activate the viewer for some particular node. And now you can see this gradient here. This is not what I'm looking for, and I want to rotate this 90 degrees on the Z, but that will make it all black, and that's because we need to move it on the Y-axis a little bit, just like this. Okay, that'll do. And now you connect it to the density and preview the principled volume. Don't forget to do that, that's really important because it would stay here on the viewer. And now you can see we have some volume that has really strong density in the back, but almost none in the front. And now if you look at the layout view, this is exactly what we wanted. We have a clear view of our scene in the front, but these lights disappear into the background. Now if I go to the render settings and switch to cycles, let me enable some denoising and preview this should look nice in cycles as well, though these light reflections of the front lights are a little bit too much, so I would either reduce the roughness on that puddle texture or remove or change the behavior of these spotlights. Now if you're ready to render this animation, you can just go to the output settings, choose your folder here in the output, and then choose FFmpeg video from the list and MP4 encoding. And now you just go render animation, and you will get your MP4 looping animation. So that's it for today's Synthwave animation loop. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please leave that like, it will really help me. And again, if you're new and you want to see more, please hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.